trumpet in the first place. So with me here is Claude Deppa, a jazz musician originally from South Africa, a friend of High Masekela. Thank you so much for coming in. I mean, it is a sad day today, but wow, what an extraordinary life and an extraordinary career.
Yes, he was, and an extraordinary person. I mean, he had life oozing out of every single note he played. He had a way of communicating. He was a people's person. He understood, and I think that comes from the oppression, the suppression, all of that he suffered. And he realized that actually, underneath our skin, we're all the same, you know, and it's that love for the human, for humans, that love for life.
And you knew him. I mean, what was he like? And for a young person picking up the trumpet, I mean,
yes.
Was that the person you had in your mind's eye?
Yes, in many ways, he was the forefather of the music being brought out to the world. Miriam Makeba, of course, his first wife, did it first. But High Masekela really made his sound special. And it was, when he was in London, he was studying in London at Trinity, with Fela Kuti, by the way, actually. They're old friends. But he took up the trumpet, and I think somebody said to him, why are you playing jazz? Play South African music. And that's what really he was comfortable in doing, and that's what he did. And I think through that voice, his own natural voice.
You were telling me an extraordinary story whilst we were waiting to come on, which was you were talking about the music, and it touches on what you just said, because you were saying that jazz was seen as black music, and that white people almost had to smuggle themselves into the townships to actually take part or to listen.
Yes, because, I mean, during the apartheid era, jazz was very much a black music for the blacks. You know, it wasn't heard. If you were white, you had to listen to choirs, I suppose. There was nothing else. But there were lots of musicians, white musicians, who wanted to play that music. And they were smuggled into the township. Chris McGregor, great pianist from the Brotherhood, he was smuggled into the back of lorries and had to sit behind a curtain to play.
And you're 60, I mean, you remember those days that he was so closely entwined, the political struggle. Give me an idea of what that fight was like and how important music was to that fight.
Well, I believe that music was absolutely the driving force behind the acknowledgement of the struggle that really brought it out light. I mean, nowadays you have Cadbury's using black South African music, but it was part of the struggle, and the struggle wasn't party-related. It was the liberation of a people, and the music spoke through that. We
have some beautiful pictures of a very young Masekela there.
I sometimes look like him, don't I?
On a good day.
Yeah,
I mean, he is famed for his very distinctive sound, Afro jazz. Just tell me a little more, and I know you got your trumpet here. You're going to demonstrate for me. I mean, how is it different to the conventional sound?
Because the flugelhorn first was very much a mellow sound. Miles Davis, Art Farmer created it. But Hugh was the first African to use the flugel to get that. And the sound actually is very much, if you've ever heard him speak, he's got
give
a
me
very
a quick
good example. One of Hugh's favorite phrases would be... and it was mellow but flowing. But it still had an essence of urgency in it.
I mentioned in the introduction, I mean, he lived in exile for many, many years. Yes. I mean, he played with some of the gods, didn't he?
Yes,
I mean, Dizzy Gillespie, Louis Armstrong, and then developed his own sound and was involved with so many groundbreaking moments when Paul Simon and the showcasing, the backdrop of South African music.
Africa. I mean, and all of that came through when Paul Simon started off the, what was the tour called?
The Graceland.
Graceland tour. He'd already recorded a lot of the music with Ladysmith Black Mambazo. So the embargo kicked in because nobody's meant to be working with South African musicians. There was a big sting, and in fact, Paul Simon put out a single, was trying to, Diamonds of the Soles of My Shoes, never came out. And there's a clip of me in there somewhere as a young trumpet player. But anyway, so the embargo kicked in against that, not knowing that Paul Simon was actually doing the tour with 90% South African musicians. And I think he knew, Paul Simon knew something was going to happen. That's why that was so important a phrase before the end of the era.
We've got about a minute or so left. When was the last time that you actually saw him? How regularly? How much of an influence did he have on your own career?
A lot. I first met High Masekela, I must have been 21, and I was at a rehearsal with Julian Bahula. and High Masekela walked in, and you know that moment where you go, oh no, I've lost the gig. Julian's going to call you. But you came up and went, hey, my lighty is what he called me. And I'm like, wow, he's calling me kid. He recognized me. But it was like, that's who I wanted to sound like. That energy, not necessarily the sound, that energy to, how can you say, to affect people right deep down. And that's what you had. I've since then met him many times because he's percussionist and myself, we're old friends. At the Barbican, the last time I saw him live, was he'd finished playing the concert, I ran backstage, and he was trying to take his shirt off, and he had a dashiki on, a blue one, and he got halfway with his dashiki, and he was stuck there. And I walked past, and I just pulled it off him, and he said, oh, it had to be you. He had to save me from this. But he was a general person. He loved people.
Well, look, wonderful, wonderful memories. I know that as a tribute, you want to play out the end of this edition of Global, so I'll let you get on with it. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks for inviting me, and I'm going to play out with a composition of you. It's called Sikunjalo.